good morning again. Good day, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to our second First Friday. You're very welcome for joining us for our February special, where we are looking at how to prepare for Lent, Easter, and the many other things that Ben is going to be looking at, which I'm very excited for. So if you're new here, our First Fridays are our sort of monthly Zoom-based gatherings, aiming to help anyone involved in communications across the Baptist Together family. So that doesn't matter if you're a minister or administrator, whether you work for a charity, a church, or an association. We just want to share the wisdom of those that we get to work with, and hopefully answer questions that you might have. If you haven't already, please do share in the chat where you're from and so what your role is. If anyone doesn't know, my name is Hannah. I'm a digital missioner and comms consultant. Obviously, most people will know who Mike is. And today we're joined by Ben, who's going to be talking about all his wisdom. And I was so enthusiastic about writing the slides. I wrote head of communications at the Well, but actually he's recently finished in that role. So he'll share more about that in a minute. But how the First Fridays work are the first half will focus on a particular topic or area that either Mike and I or our speaker will talk on, and then the second half will be for conversation. So we will record this first half that will be just the speaker, and those who if you don't want to be on the video, it shouldn't come up, so don't worry about hiding your screen, but if you prefer to do that, that's absolutely fine. And then the second half I'll stop recording and we will go through some conversations, questions. If you've got any specific questions to ask Ben, or you just have a particular pain spot that you need to just talk through, we're here to do that. Please, whilst Ben's talking, please do ask questions in the chat. If we can answer them in the chat, one of us will try and do that, but if not, we will, Mike will make a note and we'll talk about it afterwards. So I'm going to now stop sharing so that Ben can go.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. Thank you, Hannah and Mike, for inviting me to be a part of this, and it's great to be here. I'll bring my slides up and then we can go through that kind of stuff and do some instructions. So can everyone see it say Easter and beyond? Was that good? Thumbs up? Yeah, fantastic. Right, cool. So I've introduced myself in the comments bit. I'm in Sheffield. I lied, it's not sunny, it's grey. I hope the sun's shining where you are today. What I want to do today is, it's really hard without knowing everyone's backgrounds and stuff, and advice that we kind of give as communications professionals is very subjective to the context and our mission and our locality and what we're trying to do. And I can, in this context, I'm going to share a bit of a case study about my experience at the Well in terms of planning and prep and Easter specifically, and then ask some questions and some prompts for you to be thinking about, and really trying to hone the lessons, hopefully, and the insights that I have into your context to make it applicable to you. So I hope that's useful. That's the journey we're going on. This is sunny Sheffield, and in theory, let's check this works. Yeah, great, cool. Here we go. Hi, I'm Ben Elliot. This is my family. I'm a bit sleep deprived. I've got an 8-year-old, and a 4-year-old, and I always like just to say these are the guys that keep me going. I am currently the director of Be Creative, which is a creative agency specializing in church communications and other things. I'm the founder of a group called the Church Comms Collective, which some of you might be members of, and that ultimately is a peer-to-peer support network for anybody involved in church communications in the UK from every denomination and background. And finally, I am the former head of communications at the Well in Sheffield, and I finished there on Tuesday, having worked formally for 2 years and 4 years prior in both voluntary and a bit of contractual roles. And it's a church that I've been a part of since its planting. I'm still at the church. It's just a feeling of a call to step out beyond, I guess, and kind of use all my skills outside of that context and let new blood come in, as it were. So enough about me. That's the initial bits. Now, for those who work in communication specifically, I'm sure you've come across this before, but the first rule of good communications is to know your audience. This audience working out right now is a bunch of lovely students that attend our church who are absolutely awesome. Understanding your audience and pitching for them and actually doing it in a way which engages the people that you're trying to serve is so important. But if we take a bit of a step back and actually look specific in our churches, the way I see the communications role is ultimately to hear kind of senior leadership, the minister, whoever that person is, get a real sense of the church's vision, the mission, the culture, the objective of the church. Like, what are you doing in your locality as a church? The comms role ultimately is to try and translate that and actually engage that story and actually help activate it. So it's coming up with the kind of mechanisms, as it were, in multiple different ways. And again, that'll be different depending on your locality and the way that you do things. So the examples that we're going through is some of the stuff that we've done. But for me, it's always about hearing that vision. It's not my job necessarily to speak into that and change that. It's to go, okay, that's what we're running with. Here's how we can get those messages across. Here's how we can empower and equip people in the process. So, well, communications case study. In terms of our church, we are quite fortunate. I don't know if many of you have been to Sheffield before and know it very well, but the church is located on Ecclesall Road, which is quite a main artery road from the Peak District into the city centre. We've got hospital nearby, we've got universities on the doorstep, we've got loads of businesses, cafes, pubs. We've got quite a socially deprived area reasonably close by, and then a very affluent area. So it's a real hot pot of amazing different kind of intersections of life in Sheffield coming together. But undeniably, one of our advantages, we have a great location and we have a lot of natural footfall, which creates a lot of low-hanging fruit. We have to make sure that we leverage that opportunity. There's all these cars going past, there's buses going past, there's loads of pedestrians. How can we reach those guys? And one thing that I want to talk about is how we've kind of formed this broad but simplified communication strategy, is acknowledging that the conversations that you would have with somebody on the doorstep of the church will be quite different to someone you're in community with in the context of the sanctuary on a Sunday morning. Both maybe in terms of the language we'd use, the way we describe things to help people understand and lower some of the barriers to entry. And just try and make it as accessible as possible. Now, we've got quite a few teams that do amazing things, go out and do prayer on the streets and just kind of serve in the neighborhood and that type of thing. And we often try and think about what are those conversations that those guys are going to have. How can we replicate that? And that is what we want to be doing in our external communications. So our social media, our website needs to reflect the conversations we have on the doorstep. Then internally, the conversations we have in a sanctuary setting where we're doing a kind of a deeper job in terms of discipleship and worship and journeying with people, those things are better reflected within the internal mechanisms we use. So the way in which we might use different software, simple things like emails and letters and stuff like that, the kind of very basics of actually how we engage and work with people on those bases. So that allows for kind of two audience splits, two different ways to channel our communication, and it helps to kind of, ask those questions. Is this particular message, is this particular topic, for example, something we're communicating with all of Sheffield? Or is it something which is actually just for the church family? And you'll know there'll be scenarios which just for the family, and there's times when, yeah, of course, this is something we want to invite everyone in the community along to. One thing that I always do when it comes to communications, and it's easier said than done, is to plan backwards and to be as far out in your planning as possible. So I ideally like to run 6 months ahead, and for most of our ministry team, they'd be like, there's no way we can plan that far ahead. And that's probably what you feel, maybe in your context, that's just completely undoable. But the reality is we can look forward to a calendar at least, and we know there's key things that are set. So we know when Easter is, we know when Lent is, we know when the kind of big festivals of the year are. This year, the extra things like the King's coronation and stuff, we know when these things are. And we can loosely anticipate that there might be something happening around those times, and earmarking when might it be that we might need to do something to help communicate that something is happening. And actually, just for me personally, I've actually been able to plan that out is so useful. So in kind of, believe it or not, in August time, when church is really quiet, I would put on a Santa hat and I put on some Christmas music, and I actually have a bit of a dreaming session for the season ahead in terms of Advent and stuff, and trying to plan those things, thinking, okay, we know when Advent starts, we know typically when we might be doing a carol service and stuff, and I start thinking about the things I'll need to deliver for that. So then I'm informed when it comes to having plan the meetings and what's coming up. Now, Easter actually isn't that far away, and I'm sure there's some folk who've not really thought about it that much, and there's others that might have everything in place already. It's never too late. It's just a case of actually going, the more time you have, obviously, the better you can bleed into that. With something like Advent or Lent, which is nearly upon us, leveraging that season's momentum in terms of planning can be really advantageous. So actually counting down the days and actually leading people on a journey to the big celebration, the gathering of Easter, for example, is so easy to actually thankfully have a roadmap for that. A lot of other things we might do, it might be a church birthday party, or maybe you're hosting a community meal or something like that. They don't necessarily have that formality around them. So leveraging these well-known dates, these well-known things which are fixed in the calendars for years to come, is something which just instantly gives us a foundation for our communications. Now, when it comes to the Wells Easter communications, I'll talk a bit about kind of resources and how to do things in that respect a bit further on. But this is what we did, and this is literally just because we've had, I guess, myself on team and the ability to be able to go and do these things. But talking those two different audiences, we've got the external and the internal. And internal, as part of our campaign, which is what we're going to call this in the lead up to Easter, we've used social media, we've used print, we've used posters and exterior banners, and we've made sure our website is adapted to actually serve the purpose of that season, communicating to Sheffield that we'd love for them to go and actually celebrate Easter and feel safe and welcome to do so at the Well. Internally, we want to make sure that the church family is journeying with us on that, and therefore we're using email, video notices. We use, we use Church Centre currently and Planning Centre. Previously, we used Church Suite. Using that kind of software is really, really fantastic. And we also use internal Facebook groups. So that's the artillery, effectively, that we had to be able to do things. And that's given me with all my focus on that for this particular season. With any of those things over the years, with any kind of campaign we've done, we try to make it a joined up approach. So we're not having, 30 different designs covering across all these different things. We have a consistent theme, and that appears on the banner, it appears on the brochures, it appears on the flyers, it's on the social media headers, it's on every single thing. So in one respect, if you build it up in Canva and hit resize, bish bash bosh, it's actually quite easy to generate that. The bigger challenge is actually to get it all in the right place at the right time. But the thing I want to stress here is the joined up approach of not trying to complicate things and create multiple different designs. It's about just kind of keeping a theme and running with it. We have a very basic brand guideline at the Well. We use 2 fonts, we use 2 colors, and we implement that around the kind of seasonal elements that are at play. So it's easier as well if you have a very simple brand, which is just agreeing what a main header font would be in your body fonts, and a couple of key colors, an accent color. Then you've got those things to play with, and again, it saves the time of starting afresh each time. So just running through here, these are some examples of kind of previous campaigns we did. So we had, this is a Facebook banner with a call to action on. We've used flowers for part of the theme running through right up to Easter Sunday itself. We changed it for the next year, some adaptations with some different color palettes. Last year, we went a bit more graphical, I guess, in terms of those illustrations. And in 2021, we actually, because obviously mid-pandemic, we're thinking, how can we really engage people? And I can't even remember right now what the status was in terms of internal kind of meetings and stuff, but we created an external exhibition outside the church using a series of illustrations and invited people to come down. With each of these illustrations, there was scripture and a kind of story to help people walk through the walk through to Easter, as it were. And then we just used those same designs and brought that across the website, brought it across everything we're doing. So there's that consistent flow. And when people see it, they recognize that it's part of the Easter communications. This was the year before again. And this is just a little tip as well with This is an Instagram carousel. For those of you who are using Instagram as part of your churches, we'll do a couple of tips later on with social media. But I wanted to show this quickly. If you notice at the bottom here, we've just put a little tab on, encouraging people to share it. And in church, we said to everybody, see that tab, who you're going to invite, DM somebody that you're connected with, and save it, because that's gold dust for the algorithm, the maths in the back end, to encourage the post to appear to as many people as possible. But this, a carousel, is effectively like a little album. So it's made up of these different pieces. So we're leading with a landing, trying to take people through what's on and when those things are happening. In this case, we were online and on site, various different things. We had a kids function in the botanical gardens nearby. So using that type of stuff keeps people on your post for longer. That boosts the algorithm. People will then actually more likely to then see that content appear before others. There's little things you can do like that. But again, the thing I'm really trying to reiterate here is trying to keep the look and feel, so you're not having to do multiple pieces of work. Over the years as well, as part of stuff, we've done short videos. All the videos we've done, which have done really well, they've all been shot on a mobile phone. No fancy gear, just whip out your pocket and just trying to keep it as real as possible. We did a video at the top here with Ronan, who is a fantastic evangelist, and he's talked about what is baptism and the significance of it. We always do baptisms on Easter Sunday, so that was great to kind of put out in the lead up to it. We did Easter morning worship and recorded Latifa and a couple of other students to try and give kind of sense of what worship might be like in the church on Easter Sunday, again, to let people kind of make church as glass house as possible so they can see what it's like. And during 2020, my son did some great acting for me, bless him, and we tried to create a little narrative story and show the impact of who Jesus is and why it matters at Easter. So all these things, though, can be done with these fantastic little devices in our pockets, mobile phones. We don't need, the best camera is the one you've got in your pocket. You can use these things and actually string it together in free software. And actually, as soon as you start using them in that context, the easier it is to actually kind of bring some of those stories to life. Thinking internally and what we did, because that's a lot of external stuff we talked about there. We created a thought for the day. During the lockdown, every day we did a kind of a thought for the day and a kind of prayer time and live streamed it. And, after 300 odd episodes, we realized that wasn't sustainable every day, but we did a Holy Week special of our Wake Up Well, which was just to really help hunker people down in the significance of Holy Week and, provide help the church to journey with what we were doing as a church family in the lead to Easter itself. And that also sat on our dedicated Easter website. So whatever platform you're using, we use Squarespace just for Easter itself, and the same other key events like Christmas. We flip that around and just create a dedicated page. So when someone comes to the website, the call to action is to find out more about what's going on at that particular time, rather than everything else that's going on. We want to make it as easy as possible for people to be able to connect and come in. So if you have the ability to do that, then that's something I'd really recommend. That's something we found really successful. So that's enough of this. Now, these are some things which I just wanted to kind of raise for you to kind of think about, maybe make some notes about and think about. What is your context? Now, the context I've said of the well is the planting of the church, its location is very specific. The unique, beautiful thing to me about the church is there are millions of expressions of it in all these different types of localities around our country and beyond. And the specific things that are happening in our localities are something which we have the privilege of being able to speak into and being a part of. So really trying to understand that, taking account of the people around, taking account of the type of the area, whether it's rural, whether you've got different businesses nearby or whatever, and actually trying to think about those things as part of the audience element, thinking, okay, here's where we are, how is our message going to be best received by these people? It's just a really good kind of stop question to really think about. What is your church's Easter objective as well? Now, this, again, will be different depending on your background and the church you're from. It might be that your church, the core objective is to be out in the community, and you're going to be running dawn worship and prayers or something like that. It might be that you're carrying the cross from one church to another on Easter Sunday. Whatever it might be, there'll be an objective in terms of bringing the community together, I'm sure, in terms of how you want to do that. The sooner you kind of really just simplify that and get your church family on board, the better. So if you're using social media, for example, I would really encourage you to let your church know that, guys, we're putting out some content and we really want to invite as many people as possible. So please, can you, like and share that content? Even if people don't want to share it, just by liking it or even looking at it, again, it boosts the algorithm and actually increases the chance of others seeing it. So we can effectively evangelize and help that in digital context, literally by just a couple of clicks. And then we can also think about other things it might want to be. Now, we do A6 flyers. We print by instant print. I think we do about 400 or 500, and it costs around 30-40 quid. It's not a big outlay, and we give them out, and we encourage church families to take 10-20, take them to school with you, put them on notice boards near your house, pop them through the neighbours' doors, make sure that people know that they're loved and they are invited to come along and be a part of Easter, our church this year. So it's understanding what is your objective, what are you trying to get people along to, or how are you trying to connect with people? What things can we do to actually do that effectively? Time, the thing that none of us have enough of, the thing that we all want more of, me included. And we've got to be realistic about these things. If some churches are fortunate enough to have someone employed full time to be able to do this, and they can invest everything in it, and that's fantastic. And I know some people are so generous in terms of their voluntary time and how they go about blessing their church. The important thing is, the thing I try to say to other volunteers that I often work with is not to worry about the time you have, but use the time you have as best you can, and look ultimately for the low-hanging fruit. So what is, for that time spent, what is the best outcome you can get? And again, that's very, I would say, key to who you are and what your church is. It might be that the best time spent is doing a banner on the outside of a church. It might be the best time spent is actually sharing and inviting people to come to an Easter gathering in a local community Facebook group, or it might be actually spending half an hour commenting and inviting people across your personal social networks because you're part of a house church, and that's actually a really powerful way to go about doing things. So the time you have, thinking, okay, what is going to be the best way for that spend for the biggest outcome? The resources available to you, this is both people and also in terms of kind of design assets and things like that. Some of us will have, it could be a team of one, it could be that this is an amazing time to actually kind of go, right, who can we get on board? I just need some help for 2 weeks. I need a volunteer to come on board just for this time to help get this over the line. Is there somebody that can give a little bit of time in an evening or something like that, just to maybe help create a few social media posts, or to help fold some letters to put through houses near the church and invite people along to things? Thinking about who can maybe bring in for this, and what is important. One thing we've done in the past is got students involved in terms of doing post drops and taking flyers around the neighborhood, which has been really powerful, and also getting other groups, house groups and things to attend. We do it's like a local craft market, street market near the church that happens every few weeks, and just go along and kind of bless store holders, be present and invite people to stuff. So it's how can you use the resources you have well? Low-hanging fruit, I mentioned that a second ago, that's really important. Where's the biggest wins, and how can that be achieved in your context? Create your plan and implement it. And the plan might be as simple as one thing on a sticky note you're able to do, and it might be far more comprehensive than that. But trying to have something that you can work with, adapt and implement is just so important. I'm going to go forward to a piece of software which a friend called Ben Elliot has developed really recently. It's free, and it's accessible via the Church Comms Collective Facebook group. And it's a Church Comms scheduling tool. It's built in a platform called Notion, but it allows you very simply to kind of outline these things. So you might have, you know, ideas, work that's in progress, what's in review, and what's published. So even if it's one thing, you can kind of store where you're at. There's other software out there like Asana that you can use if you digitally mind like that. But Ben just done a great job here. For example, there's a link for the collective at the bottom if you want to join later on and get that from there. It's a pinned post within that. But again, you've got he's outlined here, for example, deadlines, if there's links you need to apply, the status of it, and actually what it is that's being created. And it also, when it's all those dates are back from November, it populates a full calendar for you, so you can see where you are, and it just helps keep things together. So I'm going to go back to low hanging fruit, create a plan, that's it. Capturing and storing content. So many people, bless them, put all the heart and soul into the lead up to these things, and they forget to capture the event and the moments, and actually try and capture some photographs of what's going on and the stories, maybe even capturing little videos and things. And it means that next year come around, it's like, oh man, I wish I had some of that stuff to help with the promotion, and they've just not got it. I used to take photos of the well in every single weather you can think of, so that when I was on holiday the other end of the country or overseas, and I could see the weather in Sheffield was miserable, I could still do a post which was contextually appropriate to the weather that was in the place. So just capture those things. And where they're coming to the end of the time here, so there's a couple more things I'm just going to run through quickly before we have a bit of Q&A time. But for those who aren't aware, obviously Canva exists, it's free. I really encourage our church now, in part of my handover process to the guys at the well, was to equip them to be able to take ownership of their ministry and actually create content using Canva that can then be circulated by the well's main social media accounts. If you aren't aware, that's free and things. If you head on there, you just need like charitable status to be able to get that. We can give out some more tips around that later if you're not too sure. Planning resources, I mentioned. Just looking down the second bit here, I really encourage for effective internal communications to have a consistent team, a consistent method to how you do that. Workplace by Facebook is an incredible platform in terms of actually just bringing everything together, but it might be that's completely not suitable in your context. It might be as simple as actually using email or text. Whatever's right for you, I would just strongly encourage you to keep one form of consistent contact, and don't fall into the trap of having multiple different things, of WhatsApping that person, texting someone else, emailing the other person. To keep your thoughts from being as less jumbled as possible, try and keep the one thing. Now, just before we come into land, regarding the social media, and feel free to screenshot this if it's useful. A couple of social media tips right now, just to really help if you are using Instagram or anything, or Facebook, anything like that. The big thing right now that's kicking over is vertical video, short form, so like under 60 seconds. And in the past, as a comms kind of advisor, and I imagine Hannah would probably agree with this, we'd always say you've got very different audiences on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, wherever else. And that's true, we still do have different people with different preferences across there. But one common denominator now is the vertical video right now is being well and truly pushed by all the social network platforms because of TikTok. And that just means that when you do create content in that format, it's more likely to be seen, it's going to have a much broader reach. The past few weeks, we've been doing 21 days prayer and fasting at the well. We've done a 60-second quick thought for the day, and the viewing numbers have just been insane in terms of the organic reach that's possible. So what does that look like for you at Easter? Well, vertical video could literally be, hey guys, welcome to such and such church. Like, we're having this on Easter, we'd really love to come along. It might be sharing someone's story. Last year I got baptized. 10 years ago I baptized. This is who Jesus is. This is why I'd love to invite you along on Easter Sunday. Trying to get some personal stories to come forward and use that. If you're doing posts or photos, try and do it with carousels for broader reach. Consistency is best. Do not do 50 posts in a week and then nothing for the rest of the year. Try and start as you mean to go on. If you can manage a post a week, that's way better, and try and keep that momentum going. I've said it already, inform your church and try and get them alongside you and focus on who you are. It's great to get inspiration from other churches, but they're not you. And just be who you are, be authentic. That's really, really important. On the followers bit there, I've just listed some people that I really look up to and respect. They're all on Instagram, and I posed the question, who do you look to for some ideas? Danielle Davis, she's an American lady. She's done some amazing stuff within church, with church Instagram kind of things. And UK based Sat Solanki at the bottom, he's based in London, and again, a guy that's putting out some real nuggets of wisdom just to help encourage people to do their church communications well. That's most of my waffle done. I put there my stuff, so if you wanted to reach out and have any chats kind of offline, off Zoom or whatever, you're very welcome. Church Comms Collective as well is just like I said, it's a multi-denominational place where people just ask any question about church comms. There's no daft ones. Every question is relevant, and we do our best to basically help resource one another and present ideas. This is a topic we could easily speak on for hours. There's so many different levels we can go to, and each of the little elements I've touched on then are things which could be unpacked at a deeper perspective. But I hope there's some things that you can take and consider in your context. How can you plan ahead? How can you build that simple plan? And how can you basically help activate the church's vision and mission in the season coming up? Thanks very much. Can I hand back to you, Hannah?
Super. Thank you so much, Ben. That was absolutely amazing. That was, I've written down loads of bits. So to close, I'm just gonna share that screen, make sure I've got the right one. So just to finish this video, thank you if you're watching this video. Slides and handouts will be emailed if you're already on the list. So if you already had the link, or if this is your first time just finding out about First Friday, we will make sure they are attached, but feel free to get in touch with us if you can't seem to find them. Hopefully we will see you at the next First Friday on the 3rd of March, where we will be talking with Ben Lucas on how a listening team will help your ministry and comms. So thank you so much for listening. We're going to have a little bit of a discussion now, but if there are any questions that you have, please feel free, said already, to get in touch with us. Thank you very much.